Well, thank you again. My talk is really about kind of how I envisioned the conference. Oops, sorry. And kind of the reason, behind why all of you are here. It's really to look at the humanitarian aspect of surgery. I don't think this group is here to learn about robots or about surgical skills and technology. I think this group is definitely here for a higher purpose. And, in the last few days, as I've seen you guys, this is probably the most common question I've been asked is, can we do it? Why should we do it? And so these are some of the reasons. Humanitarian, Jack just talked about it. I think the huge implications for underserved areas. Access to top surgeons, top quality, I think that's very important. Emergency access, and that's why we have two speakers talking about telestroke and remote cardiovascular interventions. That may be the most pressing need for telesurgery. Wouldn't it be great if a surgeon is operating and they see themselves getting into trouble and they're able to just teleconnect an expert to help them fix it or fix the complication in real time? I think these are great. And then surgical training and education. And we've been talking a lot with Dr. Sachdeva about this, and you see a lot of tomorrow is focused on surgical education. So these are just some of the things that I think telesurgery can help. But the humanitarian benefits, I think, are why we are all here. And I think we know there are a lot of disparities out there. And I think what better than to have healthcare equity through surgery, being able to teach better and giving people access to care. That may be one of the fastest ways to restore healthcare equity globally. And so that's what I really want you guys to think about, because these are the potential benefits. Obviously, there are a lot of imbalancing factors. And as I look through this, as we talk to the health ministers who are here, there's so many different issues about healthcare equity. It's not just about technology. It's not just about training. It goes beyond that, even just based on discrimination, bias, inefficiency. So these are all the imbalancing factors of healthcare equity that I think telesurgery has a chance to go around some of these and kind of reduce that imbalance. As you can see, just healthcare expenditure, if you look, there's just massive disparity globally. If you look at Switzerland, it has 700 times more spending on healthcare from the government than a country like Madagascar. So the majority of the world is underserved in terms of high-end surgery or surgery at all. And I think this would be a very interesting project for this group to take up and maybe fix some of these issues. Also, trained personnel. There's a massive lack of trained healthcare professionals, not just physicians, but nurses and techs. And this is why even if you had the technology, it may be difficult to do this. But if you can telesurgically train people, oversee people, I think this has the potential to reduce that imbalance. As you can see here, in sub-Saharan Africa, 97% of the people have no access to surgical care, high-end surgical care, and 94% of low-income nations. So this is something that, as Jack said, it's not allowable, and we should try to change that. And I think through technology, through education, we have the ability to influence those things. And this is not just about countries in the third world. There's huge healthcare disparities here in the United States. And there's a huge underserved population here as well. Not as extreme as some of the other countries, but we have it here too. Even if you look at the state of Florida here, there is significant healthcare disparity. And so that's, as this conference goes on, this is what I really want this team to think about is how do we change this disparity? What is the humanitarian benefit of doing telesurgery? But I think, as you can see from the previous two talks, technology alone is not going to fix this. And I have to say, this was probably, I put together a lot of conferences, but this is the most difficult one. I think 80% of you I didn't know. And communicating through thousands of emails, you guys were the ones who kind of put all these things together saying, well, it's a federal issue, it's a state issue, it's a insurer issue, it's a hospital issue. No one person or one group actually owns this. We have to own all of it together. And so when I talked with Ankit Mathur, who's from the White House yesterday, I said, Ankit, this is a problem not really for surgeons or med device companies. This is for policymakers. You need to tell us tomorrow, how do we even approach this? Because it's a massive task. And I think US may be the last one to do telesurgery because we have a lot of regulatory. Asia's already doing it, India's doing it, so telesurgery may actually start outside the US, outside of Europe, because we have a lot of issues to deal with, as you can see. So why now? That was the question everyone asked, and I think a few things have come together. Telecommunication, yeah, that is there now. 5G is pretty well available in the US, not so much outside, but it's starting. If you look at countries like Rwanda, where Jack just built an ERCAD, they have 5G, and they're highly technologically connected. And so for a country like that, if they have robots, they have very good 5G, all of a sudden the healthcare disparities could go away because all of your population has access to high-end care. So very interesting to get Jack's comments on Rwanda and their healthcare IT and so forth. And then AI, obviously latency issues. Wouldn't be nice to, like, when you're driving and we're using a GPS and it says an accident's coming up and you have to get off the freeway and get back on. AI will do that. It'll see the latency issues coming and it'll just divert the signal. So I think using AI to figure out these latency issues is very, very important. And then obviously telecom. 4G was the Internet of Applications, 5G was the Internet of Things, and then 6G. It'll be interesting to hear from the telecom guys. Is 6G actually going to slow down the latency and make it longer, or do we have ways around it? So we have the experts here from telecom, and they're going to tell us, is it good that we're going to 6G, or do we have different issues? So I'll let the experts deal with that. So telecom, we have the connectivity. The next step, this is the main difference probably now than 6 months ago, is the awareness of various robotic platforms out there that are telesurgically capable that just were not there in the past. I think that is probably one of the key issues, the connectivity across countries and the ability for robots to communicate with each other. And you're going to see these various platforms penetrate Latin America, Middle East, Africa. You see, I think a lot of outside US, outside Europe is probably going to happen first, but something like this, where there's a country map and these robots are communicating and all the different robotic surgeries that are going on are being monitored. And so this is actually a real-life monitoring situation where they're actually monitoring their telesurgeries that are happening in real time. So this is a slide maybe not many of you are aware of. These are all robots that people can purchase in different parts of the world. And there's more than this. This is just some of them. So that's what I wanted to show you, because I think you may not be aware. The ones in green with red are ones I've used and are telesurgically capable today. The ones with red and blue, Intuitive and Mantra, they say they're telesurgically capable, but I have not used them telesurgically. But the other four we have, and so I can show you what we've done with them. So these are actually commercially available robotic systems that are out there. So all of a sudden, you have other robots. But what's interesting, cost. Potentially 1/2, 1/3 of the costs we're paying today. That's what's coming. So this is where you start to see healthcare equity be more reasonable, as some of the lower income nations will now have the ability to buy. And I can see where governments may buy 20 robotic systems and put them throughout their country and have centers of excellence oversee them. This is where telesurgery can really decrease that imbalance in healthcare equity. Connecting all these systems, having experts oversee them will be very important. So you can stratify them, single port, multi-port, endoluminal. These systems are already out there, coming on their way. So I just showed you systems that are already available, and there's more coming. So you see all these. Karina's in yellow. We did part of the clinical trial. Fantastic system, and it will be telesurgically available, but it's yellow because it's not commercially available yet, but should be by the end of the year. And then Microhand. They were one of the ones who did the original telesurgery a few years ago. So all these systems are coming, and we're going to have access. With multiple systems, hopefully. Looks like the costs will go down. Projections, 1/2, 1/3 costs potentially. Makes it more accessible outside US, outside Europe, outside certain parts of Asia. So I think the potential humanitarian benefit of these things all coming together is very important. You know, being able to help people in rural areas, I think that's a big goal of this conference, being able to avoid complications, terrestrial, extraterrestrial, subterranean applications. Dmitry Olenikov is going to talk about the robot that's going up into space. These are all very, very important things that I think telesurgery has the potential to do, and most importantly, surgical education. Imagine if we're able to teach at a distance. Imagine if someone's doing their first robotic cases. It'd be so much easier to have a remote proctor say, look, I'll be there for the first 20 cases, and you're sitting at home and you're proctoring and you're overseeing. These are things that are not possible right now. So is Doctors Without Borders a reality? Can we do this? Is it possible? Is it just a dream that we're going to connect these robots telesurgically? Well, I'm going to show you. I think we've already answered that question. Telesurgery can be performed, and it is being performed. And so our team actually twice went out to Asia in the last 6 months, but we just spent 2 weeks out there trying all these robots and connecting them with fiber, with 5G, with 5G plus fiber, and then even local 5G networks. And they all worked, and they all worked very well. So these systems are interesting because they're not second-line systems. They're like real-deal robots, and we really did test them significantly, and they worked. And they worked very efficiently. We had zero issues with latency and zero technical issues over 2 weeks of multiple cases. So these are all the areas that we connected, and it was quite a trip for our team to travel. The way we ensured quality was I would be at one place, but my surgical team would travel to where the patient was. So we had, at the location, we had the surgeon who would have done the case anyway, and we had my team with significant experience just in case something happened with the telecom. Nothing happened over 2 weeks. There wasn't one signal frame loss. We never noticed. It'd be interesting for my team to come up at the other end as the assistants. They said it was just like you were operating normally every day. Not one clip was off because of anything. And so we did it. So the first one, we just did an animal model. You see 1,200 kilometers, 2,400 kilometers round trip, and just local 5G network. We didn't even log into fiber or anything. This was just like your signal from your phone. I was in Beijing, and I wanted to try the animal model, and we were able to connect. And you see the latency on the screen, 25, 30 milliseconds. And that was kind of our first foray into it to see, okay, what's going on and how does it work? And then from then, it got actually quite interesting. So Marcio is one of our team, so he flew from the heat of Sao Paulo up north to the frigid Harbin. So he went from 100 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 20 in the space of 14 hours. And he got to learn some Mandarin and how to get out of snow. So Marcio, and he didn't even have a jacket from there. They told him he should buy a scarf before he goes to Harbin. So we operated, but we had to deal with all these. We had to deal with, patient consent, the ethics, the telecom. My team was there in case something happened because, I was concerned. I was worried. I was like, this is never going to work because it was my first experience. And we were just shocked by how well it worked with zero issues at all. And so it was about 1,500 kilometers away from Beijing to Harbin. And we did this case. There's Marcio. He's there in Harbin in the cold, and I'm in Beijing. And we were able to do a nice case with the room. We were able to communicate with them verbally without any issue, no frame loss, no issues at all. And we were following the latency because that was my main concern because, my experience at that time was quite minimal. And so I had this monitor next to me, and I kept looking at it to see when is the signal going to go down. It didn't, and we were able to do the cases without a problem. But it was very interesting how they have it arranged. You can easily speak to the surgical site. Everything's in real time without any issues. And as you can see here, I'm going to show a little bit of the video of kind of how in real time it works. And so tomorrow in the morning session, we'll actually show some telesurgery with the latency in real time, and you'll get to ask the actual engineers from the companies of how they're managing the latency and the robot. So we have the actual guys who are part of the company here to answer the questions, which I probably can't. And so it was very interesting, but a little bit nerve-wracking to do, but I was really happy that my team was there. I think this is going to be like how we did robotic surgery in the beginning. Remember when we first started robotic surgery, we used to have an open tray, we used to have a laparoscopic tray, because we were worried the robot was going to break and we were going to have to convert. About 4 or 5 years later, it was so reliable that we never do that. And that may happen here, where telesurgically, we're going to send our team there and have them there, but then the telecom and the cybersecurity has become so reliable down the line where we're fine. Maybe there just needs to be a tech to put in the ports because you know nothing's going to happen, and I can see that happening over time. So we were able to do this case. That's our famous virtual handshake across 1,500 kilometers. And then we did other stuff, which is even more interesting, especially in terms of surgical education. I was in Beijing. We sent Marcio, we took away his jacket, and we sent him down south, where it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit positive. So he had a 120-degree difference in the space of 8 hours. He goes down, he's with the patient, he's with the console. I'm in Beijing still hanging out, but the person learning was in a third city, in Hunan. So it was interesting. I was able to kind of proctor, and so this surgeon just has a console. He's in Hunan, and I'm able to transfer back and forth pretty easily. And he gets to do the case. I do part of it. As you see, a different robot from the other one, open console. What was interesting is all these systems, the learning curve was essentially zero. They worked just like we used to. And I'd never done an open console before, but it was surprisingly good. And so we did a triple console where the actual surgeon learning was in a third, wasn't even with the patient. My team was there in case there was a problem. And so later on today, these companies will come up and they'll tell you about how they're doing it ethically, how they're managing telesurgery, which is a pretty structured system over there. The oversight is quite good, so you have to get licensed and everything. And so we were licensed by the government to go there and operate. It wasn't easy. I had to send them all my diplomas, and it took a few months to get that done, but we got it done. And that's the local site. So from China, we went to Japan, because the Hinatori guys say, look, we can do this too. And it was amazing to go to Japan and spend time with the Hinatori team, and they were able to say how they're doing it. So we have Dr. Hakameda and Dr. Oki, who are from the Japanese Surgical Society. And what's interesting there is the Surgical Society themselves is actually overseeing the implementation of telesurgery in Japan. So they're going from an academic route where the societies themselves are starting to figure out how they're going to connect. And they connected 5,000 kilometers away in Singapore right before I went there. So they'll talk about this. The SSI mantra, this was last week. I called Sudhir and I said, look, we're going to have this conference. You need to do something telesurgically. And he rose to the challenge. And he was in the middle of a conference, and he connected to his lab live from the conference and showed. So he's a cardiac surgeon, so this is a pig heart. And he's live on stage, connected telesurgically to his lab. And it was the first time they did it. They put it together in like 1 week, because I told him about the meeting, and he was going to come, but he couldn't make it. But this is now telesurgically capable as well. So a lot of connectivity. So I got the guys to send us a console here, and we were able to do these this week, where we connected to Dubai, not a patient, just to the lab. Imagine 26,000 kilometers round trip. Latency is significant, 400 milliseconds. But how did we do? We did it in 3 days, and we used a 5G card I bought off Amazon. So with very minimal technology, we're already at 400. And actually, we can operate it pretty well. Imagine when we get people like Misha and Telecom to tell us how to connect it, what we can do. So I was able to log straight into Arab Health, and I was able to operate their robot in the booth from here, and we're able to do Shanghai. So 26,000 round trip possible, latency issues and so forth. But as you can see, I think the technology is available. I think telesurgery is technologically possible now, and I think we are seeing a kind of a dawn of a new era. There's obviously a lot of technical considerations, and this is what this group is here for: the ethical, the public policy, the medical, legal. No one person owns this, as I said, but I think for the humanitarian implications, I think telesurgery, we should look at it. This group should definitely spend time thinking about it, because I think we have a chance to truly change healthcare through this innovation, which I think many of us have been waiting for some time. Surgical education is going to be very important. That's why tomorrow is going to be very key to see, our heads of societies, our thought leaders talk about how this could affect surgical education, because I think that may be the key to overall healthcare equity. But as you can see, there's a long road ahead. We have a lot of issues with technology, infrastructure, redundancy, scale, global privacy, all of the above. These are all challenges, and that's why I think this is the first of a few conferences. It's going to take a long time, especially here in the United States, but it's nice to have our global leaders from other countries to see how they're already doing it. So we will be learning from our colleagues in Asia probably first. But I think it's important. I think you guys are here for a reason. You're not here to learn about robots or about surgery. I think you're here, you took your time because you understand the humanitarian applications of telesurgery. But I think we have to remember the key reason we're here. It's to take care of our patients with good quality, but to do it safely, ethically, lawfully, and cost-effectively. I think that's how this conference has been structured, where we think about all these things, not just about connecting robots and doing surgery, but you have to do it where it actually helps the patient. And I think that's how it's been structured. So, the future is very interesting. I can see where in the future our residents are being trained with AR and VR, telesurgically, maybe operating, remotely and doing all of their training virtually in the beginning. I think that's possible. Sentient, autonomous robots. I know people are working on these robots where maybe the best surgeon is a robot, I needed coffee in the morning. I get tired after my 8th prostate. These robots can go 24/7. Imagine when we look at prostatectomy. Prostatectomy is done 1,000 different ways by surgeons. Intuitive looked at that and they found this one operation is done 1,000 different ways. There should be 1 or 2 ways that operation should be done, and the robots are going to be the ones doing that, not humans. Humans are just too unpredictable and too variable. So I think we just have to remember the reason we're doing this, the humanitarian implications, the underserved areas. I think that's the key to this meeting. But we should dare to dream. And I can see a day where we have rooms like this where we're overseeing multiple operations. We're making sure the quality is good, making sure the complication rates are low, and I think it'll be really interesting. We have the technology, but we don't have the ability yet. But I think a lot of our colleagues internationally will show us. So, it's a huge honor to be up here with all you guys, the global leaders. It's very humbling, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.